Past simple tense in English, regular and irregular verbs. In the present simple tense, we say I live, you live, we live, they live. But for he, she, it, we add an S to the end of their verb in the present simple. So we say he lives, she lives, it lives. However, for the past simple tense, it is much easier. There is only one form of each verb in the past simple tense. The exception is to be, which has two forms, was and were. We will see more about this later. The past tense of live is lived. Lived is used for all subjects, including he, she, and it. I lived, you lived, we lived, they lived, he lived, she lived, it lived. You can see that the past tense verb is the same for all subjects. There is only one form for each verb. Look at these examples in the present simple tense. I live in a small apartment. He lives in a big house. How can we change these sentences into the past tense? They become, I lived in a small apartment. He lived in a big house. Notice how in the present tense the verb changes. I live, he lives. But in the past tense, the verb is the same. I lived, he lived. How can you make a past tense verb? To make a past tense verb, we normally just add ed to the end of a regular verb. For example, play becomes played. Rain becomes rained. Cook becomes cooked. Watch becomes watched. Need becomes needed. Want becomes wanted. If the regular verb already ends in E, we just add a D to the end. For example, live already ends in an E, so we just add D to the end. Live becomes lived. Smile becomes smiled. Dance becomes danced. See our lesson about the spelling of words ending in ed for more examples and exceptions. The link is in the description. Now, listen to the pronunciation of ed at the end of each verb. Played, rained, cooked, watched, needed, wanted. Did you notice how the final ed was pronounced in 3 different ways? D, t, id. Listen again. Played ends in a d sound. Played. Rained ends in a d sound. Rained. Cooked ends in a T sound. Cooked. Watched ends in a T sound. Watched. Needed ends in an id sound. Needed. Wanted ends in an id sound. Wanted. Here is a quick summary chart. I recommend watching our complete English lesson about the pronunciation of ed at the end of words. The link is in the description. Look at these sentences. They live in Spain. Present tense, affirmative sentence. They lived in Spain. Past tense, affirmative sentence. The only difference is that the verb in the past tense ends in ed. What is the negative form of the sentence in the present simple tense? They live in Spain becomes they don't live in Spain. Don't and doesn't are used in the present simple tense to make a negative sentence. But how do we make a negative sentence in the past simple tense? We just use didn't. They lived in Spain becomes they didn't live in Spain. We do not say they didn't lived in Spain. No. Look at the summary chart. Didn't is used to make negative sentences in the past simple tense. Remember, in the present simple tense, don't and doesn't are used. In the past simple tense, we only have one auxiliary, didn't. I didn't, you didn't, we didn't, they didn't, he didn't, she didn't, it didn't. Didn't is used for all subjects. But what comes after didn't? The verb after didn't is always the base form of the infinitive. Didn't live, didn't play, didn't watch. The auxiliary didn't tells us it is a negative sentence in the past simple tense. Let's look at the two negative sentences again. They don't live in Spain. They didn't live in Spain. The only difference between these negative sentences in the present tense versus the past tense are the auxiliaries, don't or doesn't, and didn't. Change these negative sentences from the present tense to the past tense. I don't play the piano becomes I didn't play the piano. She doesn't live in Italy becomes she didn't live in Italy. We don't need a dictionary becomes we didn't need a dictionary. Jack doesn't want to go becomes Jack didn't want to go. Look at these sentences again. They live in Spain, present tense affirmative sentence. They lived in Spain, past tense affirmative sentence. How do we make a question in the present simple tense? They live in Spain becomes do they live in Spain? We just add do to the beginning. Do and does are used in the present simple tense to make a question. But how do we make a question in the past simple tense? We add did to the beginning. They lived in Spain becomes did they live in Spain? Notice how the verb live is used because it is the base form of the infinitive, just like with negative sentences. We do not say, did they lived in Spain? No. In English, we use did to make questions in the past simple tense. Exceptions, questions with to be or modal verbs like can, might, must, etc. So the questions are, do they live in Spain? Present simple tense. Did they live in Spain? Past simple tense. The only difference between these questions in the present tense versus the past tense, are the auxiliaries do or does versus did. Change these questions from the present tense to the past tense. Do you play football? Becomes, did you play football? Does he want to go? Becomes, did he want to go? Do I need a ticket? Becomes, did I need a ticket? Does she live in Japan? Becomes, did she live in Japan? With questions beginning with did, you can also give a short answer. Look at these questions. What are some possible short answers? Did you need my help? Yes, I did. Or, no, I didn't. Did she open the window? Yes, she did. Or, no, she didn't. Did Steve walk to work? Yes, he did. Or, no, he didn't. With questions, you can also use one of the question words, such as when, where, why, what, who, which, etc., before did. Look at these example sentences. When did you arrive? Where did they go? Why did she leave early? What did he say? For now, we have only seen regular verbs in the past tense. But don't worry, irregular verbs in the past tense are also easy. Let's look at the verb to go. In the present tense, it is go or goes. The past tense of go is went. Went is used for all subjects. I went, you went, he went, she went, it went, we went, and they went. They all use went. For example, I went to the beach last weekend. She went to the dentist last week. They went to the library yesterday. You went to a concert last night. For the past tense of go, you just need to learn one word, went. The best thing is that you only need to know this irregular form for affirmative sentences. For negative sentences in the past tense, we follow the same rules as regular verbs. We use didn't with the verb in its base form. For example, you went to the concert. This is an affirmative sentence. How do we make this a negative sentence in the past simple tense? We use didn't. You didn't go to the concert. Notice how we use go because we had the base form of the infinitive. Instead of to go, just go. You don't say, you didn't went to the concert? No. Didn't tells us it is in the past tense. You didn't go to the concert. This is correct. Here is another affirmative sentence in the past tense. He went to the park. How can we make this a negative sentence? He didn't go to the park. Again, the auxiliary didn't tells us it is a negative sentence in the past simple tense. Now, look at the affirmative sentence again. You went to the concert. How can we make this a question? using the same rules for regular and irregular past tense verbs. We use did at the beginning, while the verb is in the base form of the infinitive. The question is, did you go to the concert? The auxiliary did at the beginning tells us it is a question in the past simple tense. Notice how we use go because we have the base form of the infinitive. Instead of to go, just go. We don't say, did you went to the concert? No. Did tells us it is a question in the past tense. Look at this affirmative sentence. He went to the park. How can we change it into a question? We say, did he go to the park? Again, did tells us it is a question in the past tense. So basically, past tense irregular verbs are only irregular in affirmative sentences. And there is only one form for each verb. For example, you went to the concert. You didn't go to the concert. Did you go to the concert? You can see that go is only irregular in affirmative past tense sentences when it becomes went. In negative sentences and questions, we use go. Of course, there is an exception, to be. We will see this in a separate lesson.